Mr. Tadgh Daly, our second speaker, and Tadgh is going to very nicely flow in with supporting the continuum of care, meeting the requirements of an ageing population. So Tadgh is Chief Executive in the Nursing Homes Ireland, NHI, the representative organisation for the private and voluntary nursing home sector. Nursing Home Ireland was formed in 2008 following the amalgamation of 4 nursing home representative organisations. Tadgh was formerly CEO of the Irish Nursing Homes Organisation and was one of the key figures that led to the establishment of Nursing Homes Ireland. Prior to joining the Irish Nursing Home Organisation in 2005, Tadgh worked with the Irish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty in Children in a number of senior management positions. Nursing Home Ireland is established as the spokesperson and agency for consultation on many sector-related issues by various government bodies, on stakeholders in the sector, the media, and Tadgh is an active advocate on behalf of older people. So we welcome you, Tadgh, this morning.
Thanks Mary Rose, and thanks for the opportunity. What I'll try and do this morning, the presentation will be available afterwards, so I don't propose to go through it in its entirety, but I suppose the genesis of why I was asked to speak to you was looking at the care requirements of an ageing population, and looking at, I suppose, how we as a society plan for that ageing demographic. We're constantly hear about the growing numbers of older people. What we don't hear is how, as a society, we're going to meet those needs. So, in terms of Nursing Homes Ireland itself, as Mary Rose said, the national representative organisation, 354 member homes across the country involved in education, research, training, education, annual conference, care awards, etc. So, we would see our members as providing care, but ultimately a home from home for almost 22,500 people who require residential care. Our mission statement and vision, again, I don't propose to go through it, but it's about supporting and representing the interests of our members. But in terms of our vision, it's about shaping the environment in which our members provide the highest quality of life for residents. And that's, Vicky spoke briefly about outcomes. That's the ultimate outcome. It's about quality of life for older people. And I think that is something that we hold dear, and many of our members would be very keen to ensure that there is a high quality of life. We're part of the spectrum, if you like, of organisations that work in the area of ageing and older people. And we would see ourselves very much developing strong partnerships with a myriad of organisations. Yeah, from time to time we disagree, and indeed we've had our disagreements with HICO over the years, but Nolly just mentioned it there briefly, we're coming from the same objective, and that's to ensure that we have high quality residential care for the numbers of people who require. So we work with a myriad of organisations across the health service. So what I'm going to speak about this morning is briefly just a review of where we are in the nursing home sector, looking at both the regulation side and also the financing. Looking at some of the demographics, and I could spend literally here until 5 o'clock this evening going through demographics and talking about the burden of ageing and some of the language I would struggle with myself, I can assure you. It's not a burden, it's a bounty. The fact that people are living longer is something we should be celebrating. But very often the narrative and public discourse is, oh my God, people are living longer, it's going to cost us a fortune as a society. We should flip that whole debate on its head completely as far as I'm concerned. But I'll come to that in a few moments. And then I suppose I'll outline my concerns really, if you like, that we are failing to plan as a society, just even in relation to the last few comments around regulation of home care. It was mentioned in the Law Reform Commission, as Declan has outlined, but the Minister committed in the programme for government that 2016 the regulation of home care would be done. The groundwork hasn't even commenced in that respect. So I think there's a responsibility on us as well, both as people who work in the system, but also people, just citizens of Ireland, to ensure that we agitate, to ensure that our political masters effectively take on board and see through the decisions that they commit to. So in terms of the nursing home sector, we have gone through a very significant period of change, in a very short space of time. And when you look at 2009 in particular, you had 2 very significant developments. You had the introduction of HICWA as the independent regulator, because you had the situation prior to HICWA that you had the HSE effectively as a provider of service in terms of public units, as a commissioner of service in terms of subvention, but inspector of service of the private sector, whereas the public sector wasn't inspected at all. So the advent of HICWA in 2009 was, we would see, a very positive development. And in tandem with that, then obviously you have the well-known, I suppose, and much publicised Fair Deal, the nursing home support scheme. So, as I've said there are two very significant and very, very positive developments, but not without their challenges. And I suppose looking back, the fact that the two happened concurrently, was good in many respects, but it did put huge pressure on the system, put huge pressure on operators, public, private and voluntary. But I think, in terms of what we need to say is that they were very, very positive developments. Whether we like it or not, everybody is ageing every single minute and hour of the day. But I think the public discourse around ageing is very, very important. And again, the burden of ageing. When people talk about ageing, they say, oh, the pension, time bomb, the housing, care, health and social care. The fact that people are ageing, as I say, is very positive. The age profile of our current population and future population is going to grow significantly. And rather than crossing the darkness and saying it's terrible, we should actually plan for it. And get people, now it can be difficult obviously when you're 20 and 30 and 40 to start thinking about pensions even. But people do need to start thinking about how they wish to age and how they're going to plan for that. Both on a personal level, but on a wider society level. It's effectively a postcode battery. If you happen to be in Donegal, you may have a very sophisticated model of respite care because it has been developed by the old health board system. But if you happen to live in Leitrim or Cork or Sligo or Kerry, you may not get that service. And that's what's different, I suppose, if you like, between the whole alternatives to residential care as against residential, because residential is under the statutory fair deal scheme. Again, I have a quotation there from Minister Lynch in 2012. So, healthcare reform and the health reform programme. Objective, deliver care at the lowest level of complexity. Now that's 3 years ago. And, I don't want to be unkind, but not a whole lot has changed, unfortunately. That's the reality. So 3 years ago you have, Minister with responsibility in terms of strategic framework for reform saying we're going to change things. 65, okay, it's an international benchmark, the WHO uses it, but 65 isn't old by any stretch of the imagination. My own mother is 84, living in West Cork, living on her own, and very capable and happy to be able to live on her own. Yes, with supports. But what we need to do is look and support people to age in place, rather than putting a number on somebody's head and saying you're old and you need services. But in terms of the over 85, that's obviously the one that I would be most interested in because of the nursing home sector. Because really the age of people coming to residential care and the complexity of people coming to residential care and the comorbidities and the actual dependency level is primarily on the 85. And between 2011 and 2021, we're looking at a 46% increase in that figure alone. And again, you can go to 2031, 41 and 46, and that kind of suits people sometimes, particularly government agencies. They talk about 2046. Without being too cynical about it, in political terms, it's probably 6 elections away. So if I'm the minister of the day, it's not a huge issue. We'll worry about what happens in it. As I said, I don't want to be too cynical, but we do. Sometimes it's true people talk about 2040 and 20, as if it was years away, and we have loads of time in our hands. The bad news is we don't have loads of time in our hands because by 2021 there's a significant growth in all of the age cohorts over 65. The biggest one being, as you've seen there, in the over 85 category. Again, the age population and split by age again. And again, the over 65, I do challenge that idea or that notion that somehow over 65 is old. But again, I don't want to go through those, but they're available to you afterwards. And just I suppose the infograph there is basically looking at the over 65 and the over 85. That's the 2021. So that's 6 years later on, Linda and Natalie are going to be speaking on the single assessment tool. It's a very positive development, I think, because what that will look at, and again, the speakers later on will be much better informed than I. But it's about again looking at that point in time where a person is in their lives, so that the system and services can respond. I would argue strongly that there is a role for the nursing home sector in providing many of those, what I would call complementary services. I suppose the difficulty at the moment is because the nursing home sector is regulated and the home care sector is unregulated. A lot of our members are nervous, understandably, about getting, I suppose, involved, if you like, in those services because, you know, there may be contagion in terms of your other services. But we do need to develop complementary services in terms of primary care. And I would ask the question of, you know, why would the HSE or the state be building, you know, primary care centres in Bantry or Bundoran or Bohola or Ballina when, in fact, there is a centre there already, a nursing home, that you could say to the nursing home people, you know, can you provide other services here if we contract those services from you? But again, that's maybe a bit blue sky thinking. Developing the independent living, something that hasn't really, I suppose, caught on, if you like, in this country. And again, I go back to my own mother. If I told her that she was leaving home and going up to the independent living in the nursing home, even though she's 84, she'd probably say, that's for the old people. So I think there is a sense that people say, well, I'm not going to be going into that independent living because it's the step, it's the next step. So I think there is a sense that we need to, I suppose, talk a little bit more about independent living and the role of independent living. Implications of any of UHI and healthcare commissioning. You know, universal health insurance, would it happen? What are the implications for that, or of that rather, for the aging population? In terms of the Fair Deal review, announced Fair Deal commenced in 2009. The review was announced in 2012, and we still haven't seen the report. Again, 3 years later. But we would argue that there should be, I suppose, a mirror scheme, if you like, for Fair Deal on community care. And it should mirror the same principles. I suppose the last bullet point there is maybe the most contentious, this issue of a co-payment model. You know, again, is it realistic? Is it fair that people with means should be asked to contribute? I think that's a question we have to ask ourselves as a society. So I'm just conscious of time coming up to 5 minutes. So in terms of, almost there, the last 1 or 2 slides, I'll leave some time for questions. So in terms of, I suppose, where is the plan? And that's what I'd be most concerned about. You know, what is government policy in this area? And I think we do need to be ambitious as a society for our older population. It's not good enough to say it'll be okay, it'll be all right in the night, because it won't be all right in the night. We do need to plan for the growing numbers of our population that are aging. You know, it's important that they would acknowledge some positive developments. There is the National Positive Aging Strategy, the National Carer Strategy, the National Dementia Strategy. I suppose the fear on those is that there isn't a huge level of implementation, and again, even just this week, the Carers Association have been out looking at the carer strategy, suggesting that indeed there has been regression in many of the strategic objectives of the carer strategy. But again, we would say strongly, and there is some movement with the department on this, is that there's a requirement for an overarching policy on ageing. So rather than just looking at you know, carers and dementia and long stay and home care, what you need an overarching policy that encompasses all of that and is ambitious, but also that there's a, as I would put it down in the second last bullet there, with a very ambitious implementation plan. We have lots and lots of reports in this country. We're very good at analysing what went wrong. We're not so good, unfortunately, at developing an implementation plan around many of the strategic objectives. And you know, the policy on future provision, you know, will the public still maintain provision? How are we going to fund long-term care into the future? And there is, as I say, significant implications of inaction. And as I said, in conclusion, there is a need to plan. It's in all our interests. As I said earlier on, the bad news is we are aging as well. So we're not talking in the abstract. We're talking about ourselves as we age, so that services, when we do get there, hopefully in the fullness of health, that there is the plan for the ageing demographic. The demand for residential is currently exceeding supply. We do need a cohesive national strategy, and as I've said, doing nothing is not an option. From an NHI point of view, we've been campaigning for the last number of years for a Department of Health-led forum on we would say long-term residential care. Maybe that should be broadened out to residential or to you know, care of the ageing demographic. But we do need engagement with all of the players, so that there is, you know, I suppose buy-in, if you like, but it needs to be the department led. So I hope that gave you some food for thought. As I said, the presentation will be available through CNG, I'm sure, and I'm happy to stay for a few minutes for questions. Unfortunately, I am running away as well, but happy to take any questions that you may have. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, any questions?
Ty, I just want to congratulate you. I think that was a great paper and well presented. I really appreciate the bit about congratulating us all, because I think I'm the oldest member in the room, so I'm delighted to be in No, I tell you what, the second half of your paper really re-emphasised, I think, a lot of the fears a lot of us have about the fact that there is this tsunami, there is this tidal wave of aged, healthy aged, who then become infirm, really hitting not just us, it's right across the world. I mean, when we were upset with 800 people on trolleys in England, the same day they had 40,000. I mean, this is a really, really serious problem. And you get a feeling that fair deal is, the wheels are beginning to come off. I know they put another bit of money in, but people still seem to be waiting 4 months. You're never quite sure when they're going to send you the letter one way or the other. I think one of the real problems, I mean, I congratulate you all in the nursing homes, because I know a little bit about them, and they're really remarkably staffed, and the attitude to the elderly is extraordinary. But one thing that does worry me, because not everybody's going to be able to squeeze into a nursing home, they're going to have to be kept at home, and I feel that the majority of design of domestic houses is totally ill set to look after a very infirm parent or grandparent. 4 bedrooms upstairs, 3 rooms downstairs, steep staircases. How do we look after our generation just ahead of me in that situation? Also, the cost is quite terrifying. It seems to me that all parents have worked their lives to better or get the family slightly better off. And suddenly they come to the end of their lives, and it's as if a Dyson Hoover has been put into the family group, and what the little squirrel nuts that they saved up for the betterment of the family are sucked out of them very, very rapidly and in a very scary way. Also, there's a collision of generations. I mean, people are having babies later, and they also will find, when they've got a young teenager, that they've probably got 2 parents to look after as well. It's an impossible financial equation to be living in. And should we be a little bit braver, because it concerns me greatly that I don't see any of the incumbent parties interested in particular. You talk about, as I see all the time, 3 years as a report and nothing happens. This tidal wave is about 8 miles off the beach and they're doing nothing. And somebody like yourself, I think you have to try and pull together a planning committee of real teeth, because we are in a situation, and look, we've got to talk about, I'm ready to have a living will, but we have to have very grown-up conversations at some stage about a subject we none of us want to talk about, which is euthanasia. We have got to grow up and realise we have a crisis. We all talk about childcare. This is so much more serious, and it's 8 miles off the beach. But again, may I thank you so much for your talk.
Thank you very much for
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate your kind words. I mean, yes, I mentioned there briefly, the whole idea of ageing in place. We do need to create communities that people can stay in their own community in terms of ageing in place. But that's not just about health. When we talk about ageing, it's always focused on health, whereas in fact it's about Department of the Environment, planning, all of those issues, transport have to be taken into account. I mean, the cost issue is significant. Obviously, people are, and that was why I felt it was important to point out that it is a co-payment model. But I suppose, the question we have to ask ourselves as a society: are we willing to pay more tax for enhanced healthcare provision? I'm sure people have differing views on that. Difficulty there, I suppose, is that in the past we have paid more tax and we haven't got the services. So maybe that's why there's a reticence in people saying that they would pay more tax. And you're right, we do need to be braver, the word you used, ambitious, but absolutely we do need to be braver. And I don't propose to get into the euthanasia debate today, I can assure you. I want to leave.
Yeah, and I suppose, there isn't one quick fix, it's many factors, and I suppose like having worked in the health services in the time of the previous subvention, at least now there's some fairness in the way, because, it wasn't always, the fairest way, the previous subvention worked. And I suppose like there are some countries where, like Norway and that in primary care, where they have universal health care, but they're paying very high proportion of taxes, and we're already, paying what we consider very high. And yet in some of their models, they're also paying private health insurance as well, So it's trying to look at the diversity of, and certainly older people wish to remain in their own home. So it is important that we have that continuum of services right from, the housing, and we haven't been very good, I suppose, in looking to our future in Ireland as well. We all wish to stay in our own homes, we don't want to live there, where in other countries people, step down and plan and sell and move into an apartment and that, So there are lots of different things that we need to look at as society as well as at government level, and all the different organisations here and the different services that we're providing. Any other questions for that? And I think we'll just leave it at that then, just to keep on time. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, thanks very much, Tadgh. I don't have a question for you. I just wanted to make a comment in response to the previous speaker and his question about home design and how we design our homes in Ireland. I work for the Centre for Excellence in Universal Design at the National Disability Authority, and next Tuesday we're launching guidelines on universal design homes, which is really, how can we design our homes so that they're for us as we age, as we have young families. We just want to draw people's attention to that. They're being launched next Tuesday in the Pillar Room in the Rotunda, and the documents will be available online on our website. It's universaldesign.ie.
Thank you very much. And thank you for an excellent presentation. Is there one more question? Okay.
Thanks a million, Tadgh. That was really informative. I had to attend a funeral there yesterday of a distant relation who was 94, and he commented a little while ago that he was feeling a bit tired and that he wished he was 70 again. So I suppose it brings back the point that the living later and plus 85 age group increasing. But what I was actually interested in is Nursing Homes Ireland and their attitude to technology. At my Homecare, we've teamed up with CARES app to try and sort of consolidate what we know about the individuals that we care for in one platform, and try and put something in place that they can bring that with them as sort of a lifelong care plan. Because I suppose when you age and you come on the radar of the health service, you're going to stay there for a considerable period of time. Even if you drop off there for a while, the likelihood is you will be back at some point, and that information is ready to whatever healthcare professional is ready to engage with that individual where appropriate. I'm just wondering, within the nursing home sector, are there sort of advances in relation to electronic patient record, or how is that the NHI embracing technology?
Yeah, good question, Declan. Yeah, I suppose there's a couple of elements to it. One is obviously the CSAR is the first port of call for many people when they come to nursing home care. So it's the common summary assessment record which determines a person's suitability or desirability for nursing home care. So that's held by the HSE. So the single assessment tool will move on that in terms of capturing, I suppose, the data in respect of an individual. But each individual nursing home, very many of them now would have technology-driven care planning. Now, how that's shared into the system is obviously a difficulty under data protection, etc. And I think Vicky mentioned briefly a few moments ago this issue of a unique patient identifier. I think that's where we need to go as a society, so that you have that unique patient identifier. But yeah, the short answer to your question is yes, the sector has embraced it, but it's on a nursing home by nursing home basis. Different nursing homes using different electronic platforms. There's a number of kind of, I suppose, established providers out there and some new providers coming into the system. But yeah, technology is a huge part of the whole care planning and you know, data records for older people, and I suppose managing their transition as their condition either deteriorates or improves.
So we give a warm round
Okay,
of
thank you.
applause to Tadgh.